Hello everybody, my name is Steve McNeal. I'm Superintendent of Schools for the School District of Beloit. It's my privilege to sit in front of you today and talk to you a little bit about our upcoming referendum and try to help you understand better what we're going to have involved in the referendum, the cost it will have to you as a taxpayer in our district, and the benefits it has for our children. So with that, I would like to show you what we will have in this presentation. In the presentation, we're going to talk a little bit about the background information, how we got to the $70 million referendum that we're proposing, the physical plants that we're talking about in the referendum, what are the educational advantages of the referendum that will benefit our children as we go forward, the financial costs and savings, what are we planning on doing to some of the retired buildings, and the economic development within the school district of Beloit. To start out, the Board of Education gave us a challenge to take a look at our buildings. And when we actually take a look at our buildings, we have 8 of our buildings that were built before 1928. In fact, 4 of our buildings were built before 1904, which gives you some kind of a perspective on how old our buildings are. Our newest building was built in 1965. The last major renovations in 1994 to the high school exclusively. In 1994, bonds are going to be maturing at the end of this school year, or at the end of 2012. And one of the advantages that we have right now is looking at the lowest interest rates in the history of the United States. The board asked us as an administrative team to answer 3 basic questions. What do we need to do with our buildings physically? What are the best educational advantages? And what would be the dream if we could put together the dream school district? We came up with this. Our referendum plan has the physical plants that renovate the 6 existing K-3 buildings into pre-K-3 buildings, which are 5 grade groups, 4-year-old kindergartners, first, second, and third grade. We're going to have more and larger classrooms and the consolidations for team teaching. We're going to create intervention rooms that allow us to continue to go with our RTI model that has been a statewide model of how to educate kids. We're going to have larger and better gym space because we've always been very cramped in the gyms that we have at the elementary, and with the larger population at each building, we'll be able to accommodate our students better. And then we're going to hit the needed repairs. That was question number 1 from the board, which was what did we need to do? We're going to take our roofing. Our average roofing system in Beloit is about 21 years old, so those roofing systems are going to need to be addressed soon. We're going to take care of the heating and air conditioning units, the building envelope, tuck pointing, windows. We're going to take care of the needed furnishings, the security upgrade, the parking, and drop-off areas at each and every elementary and middle or intermediate school. And then we're going to take care of some technology things. You'll see in the new plans as they get rolled out and as you get a chance to look at them that we have renovated our kitchen and preparation areas for food service so that we can better accommodate and help our students. Many of our students, this is the best meal they get during the day. The preliminary plans for our K-3 costs are about $29 million, approximately 440 students per building, and this is what it looks like. On the east side, we're going to have Todd, which will require around $6 million, Merrill $4.4 million, and Robinson $5.6 million in renovations. On the west side, Converse at $5.6 million, Hackett at $5.1 million, and Gaston at $4.2 million. Now, it's important to understand these are fluid numbers, and as you actually get the construction bids in, and as we look at renovations, you run into things that might require some more tender love and care than others, or there could be possible revisions. So they're a little fluid, but this is a pretty approximate number of where we would be at each building. We also are talking about renovating 4 buildings in their intermediate schools, grades 4th grade through 8th grade. Again, 5 years, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Aldrich and McNeal would not be addressed in this referendum. We have about $10 million of our maintenance and capital budget that we can allocate towards McNeal and Aldrich and Beloit Memorial to take care of some of the needs that we have at those buildings. Later on, we'll talk to you a little bit about savings in the referendum that is about $2.5 million per year we will save by consolidating and using better resource, or being able to better utilize our resources at each building, which can also be put into the 3 secondary schools that are not being addressed. Preliminary plans for the 4th grade through 8th grade, the intermediate schools, is cost about $34 million. Cunningham will have a new wing put onto it, about 60% build out. It keeps the historic significance of that building underway. We know Cunningham is near and dear to many people in our community. It has a beautiful, beautiful building as it is right now, with woodworking that couldn't be replicated. And the old Morgan site will be shut down, and we'll have a new intermediate school on the south east side of town. The reason we had to come to this is that the old Morgan had a series of issues that we couldn't deal with, that because of parking problems, because of traffic problems in the old Morgan, because there didn't quite have enough green space to accommodate the facility we needed there. We knew, our architects told us that the old building, to convert it, would cost more than 66% of the cost of a new building, which is an architectural rule to be used. So we will be building a new building. We have almost finished nailing down the site on that side of town. We're hoping to have it in a place that can showcase Beloit, and that people driving into Beloit will see that new building. Intermediate school design, one of the biggest questions that we receive in the referendum is, why would we want to put 4th graders with 8th graders? Well, we do want to put them with 8th graders in the same building, but in that building they'd be segregated by wings. 4th, 5th, and 6th grade would be separated from the 8th and 9th, or 7th and 8th graders, so that very seldom would a 4th grader even actually interact or see an 8th grader. There are hopes that we would have some interdisciplinary things go on between the kids, and that we would also have some tutoring going on, but other than that, they would have separate wings with separate entrances, separate pickup and drop-off areas. The beauty of it is that we'll be able to share spaces for music, art, phy-ed, English language learners, special ed, and library media. The consolidation of this and the better utilization of these areas will help us in the future reduce costs in our operating budget. Beloit Memorial High School is going to have an approximate cost of $4 million in the new swimming pool. There's been a lot of talk out there that this pool is greatest part of the cost of the referendum, and that's not at all true. As you know, in a $70 million referendum, $4 million is just one little piece of it. We would be building a new addition onto the north of the field house, existing field house. It would be a new 8-lane pool with locker rooms, community changing room, bleachers to hold large events, so that we can bring more people into the city and showcase Beloit for the great city it is. Because we're going to the north, and because the old tennis courts are no longer usable, we'll be tearing up the old tennis courts and relocating them across the street over between Beloit Memorial and 6th Street. The relocation will allow us to put an 8 tennis courts complex, will also help us to be able to host larger meets that will be able to bring more people into Beloit again. It also gives our kids the ability to compete in a home meet, just like our swim, which right now we're not able to do. The Life Center, or the fitness room, has an approximate cost of about $500,000, and we have to relocate it because the old swimming pool was no longer functional. It was not deep enough for us to have home meets. So we're going to tear up the old pool. We're going to get rid of the old piping that's leaking. We're going to shut it all down, and we're going to fill it in and build a new fitness center in there, a new life center. We're going to have all of the new equipment that we received through about a $750,000 grant that was written by our phy-ed department and received. a federal grant, and we were able to purchase all new equipment for cardiovascular and high resistance type weights, and we'll be able to put those in our new weight room Life Fitness Center. Big question out there is, what are you going to do with the old retired buildings? One of the advantages of this referendum is that we're going to be able to retire some buildings, better consolidate staff and resources, as we did last year. When we were able to do that last year by shutting down 2 buildings and consolidating our staff and resources, we saved about $2.3 million. In the new referendum, we will have 6 buildings that will now be retired. We already know that there are those interested in buying at least a couple of those that they have expressed interest in it. Our anticipation is the board will make a decision on what to do with these in the next few months, should the referendum pass. But we also have some very specific district uses that we'll need. We'll still need to get away from the Colac Education Center and move it to a more efficient location. Right now, the Colac Administrative Building or Educational Building cost $60,000 to $70,000 a year in utilities. We'll be able to get rid of that cost by putting our administrative offices in a different location, so we can use one of those existing buildings to do that. We also need to continue to expand our use of charter schools. It is a board objective to get away from renting, and to be able to use one of our existing schools to do that would allow us to both save the cost of the rent, plus better use one of our buildings for both our RCA charter school and our learning academy. And then we'll be looking at selling at least 3 of those properties. The educational advantages of this plan is simple. We put a greater emphasis on our primary level and looking at our grades pre-K through 3. Through this configuration, we'll be able to have a positive difference in student achievement. In the last 2 years, we've already marked the best academic achievement in Beloit history. Our kids have scored higher on tests. Through data, we can prove that what we're doing is right. But this alignment will give us a chance to have multiple teachers per grade level for true collaboration to help each other in that educational experience for our children. This alignment also allows us to consolidate resources and help us consolidate things into one effort, so we have greater savings there. It does have an intense focus on the developmental needs of students. In the pre-K through 3 level, the emphasis is on learning how to read, and then as we go into 4th through 8th grade, it is reading to learn. In the pre-K through 3, we'll have 6 schools that will align that with our that experience with reading specialists for interventions for our students, and it will allow us fewer transitions, which is a big deal for us, because we know we can have a sustained relationship with families for 5 years, pre-K through 3rd grade. We're hoping for higher parent involvement because they'll have one school to go to instead of multiple schools. Same thing in grades 4 through 8, our intermediate schools. We know that middle schools have been ineffective. We know that national data shows us that middle schools have failed students, and we are losing students academically in those middle years. Evidence shows us and research shows us that the more that we can consolidate an elementary type mentality into the middle schools, the better off we are. So the middle type mentality, grades 4th through 8th, will keep our parents and students involved in more of an elementary focus than pretending that we have many high schools. We'll be, again, aligning our resources for the reading to learn mentality, and we'll also be able to better utilize our resources, again, in the gym and the tech ed and the music and the art areas, so that we can continue to offer a great fine arts program. Our elementary school, or our primary school, had the same advantage that our intermediate schools, and we're cutting down the transition. Right now, currently in our configuration, we have 4 transitions, and in this new referendum, the configuration will give us 2 transitions total in their K-12 experience. Collaborative opportunities for grades 4 through 8 is tremendous again here. We're putting multiple teachers per grade level at each building. It will be a cultural change for our buildings, more with a younger student there. And we're hoping that our 8th graders and 7th graders, and evidence will show us that kids that are presented the opportunity to become role models will accept that challenge and do exactly what we hope they do. We're also hoping that by taking 250 kids from each grade and splitting them up into 2 locations, for example, 250 8th graders now only being at 125 at 2 spots on each side of town, that each of our kids will have greater opportunities to be involved in sports and extracurricular activities. Research also shows us that those that are involved in school have a greater chance of succeeding. The cost is simply this. At the primary level, about $29 million, intermediate, $34 million, at the secondary level, about $7 million, for a total of $70 million. This is a huge price tag, but when it gets broken down in the city of Beloit and the school district of Beloit, because we are such a highly aided school district, because of our poor property value per student ratio, we receive about 64 cents on every dollar funding. So for us, because we are currently retiring the $26 million debt from 1994, when you add that to a low or to a high aided area, and coupled with the third factor, which is the lowest interest rates in the history of the United States, it looks like this. An average home in the Beloit is about $74,600. The annual cost of this referendum per taxpayer on an average home is $67.50. You divide that by 12, and it simply is $5.63 a month. Our referendum committee and our administrative team knows that our taxpayers are smart enough to know that if you have a $150,000 home, you just double all of those costs. One of the sustainable things of the referendum, one of the great advantages we have in consolidating staff and consolidating resources, is we save a lot of money. So on the other side of the equation is that not only do we have a revenue coming, additional revenue coming because of our reconfiguration, but if we go to the referendum and are able to consolidate greater, we can get rid of rent, our utility costs go down, our reduction in staff is pretty tremendous as far as the personnel that we'll need in all of the buildings. And again, we'll do this through attrition. And then you can continue to look at all of those different things being maintenance is reduced, property services, transportation, and staff travel for about a $2.3 million savings per year off of our annual budget. This is especially important to a taxpayer that when each year as funding goes down for schools that we find ways to save money. The referendum will allow us to do that. It's important for you to realize as a taxpayer that the referendum is a standalone fund. The capital expenses have to be removed from your yearly operating budget. So in other words, you can't use a referendum on capital items to help pay for the cost of personnel or other items that would be in your operating budget. It does have an effect on your operating budget through the slide that I had showed you before on this slide that shows you this cost savings that we would have in all of the referendum. So that's where you save money on your operating budget. It's an economic development for the city of Beloit. We've worked cooperatively. We went out as an administrative team 45 different times to different community groups and to the school groups and to different people, and we've listened to what people had to say. And the one thing reoccurring that we hear all the time is this is going to help the city of Beloit. Beloit's done a great job in the last 20 years renovating the riverfront and the downtown area and making Beloit a more beautiful place to be. It's time for our school district to do the same. Studies will show you in the cities or in municipalities that schools are one of the most important reasons for businesses and families to relocate into a community. New employees stay in Beloit. Increased community pride, improved image to non-Beloiters, and construction jobs. It's important for you to realize that already, because of the academic gains that we've achieved over the last couple of years in Beloit, our student population has already increased over 100 students. That helps us because for each additional student we get in Beloit, when we do a 3-year rolling average, it equates to about a $10,000 gain in our budget. That helps our economic stimulus in Beloit. One of the main emphases that we put on this referendum is that we would keep that money at home. So those construction jobs and a number of subsidiaries that could possibly be touched here in this referendum, to try to get as much of that money to stimulate our own local economy. And so it's an emphasis as we go forward, how many of those construction jobs can be done by our own people. I'd like to thank you for having me speak to you today, and I challenge you to look at the referendum, to please go to our website, our district website, and look at Referendum 2012. The vote is April 3rd. We mainly just want you to get all of the information you can so you can be an informed voter as you go forward with our referendum. We appreciate the support you have for the School District of Beloit, and appreciate your time here today. Thank you.